Hey, it's Tuesday 17th, and we're going to look at some new stuff in computer science 2. Recently, we've been doing these guys, Unit 3 and 4, and I'll probably grade this one today if I haven't already. 4, I see a good amount of people are doing it or done with it, but if you're not, that's okay. Just take your time. 5 will be assigned, so if you are looking forward, you can go ahead and do that. But actually today we're going to do something else. So I don't want to just come in and, stare at your Chromebook every time and click the next thing, because it's almost like, well, you don't even need to be here for that. You wouldn't need me or each other. I want to do some stuff that's a little more open-ended and based on your own ideas and everything else. Also, when you're doing these, you're getting graded by a computer, and it can be kind of restricting. Sometimes you get what seems like the right result, but then it doesn't give you the check mark because it wants you to write exactly a certain way. And I don't want you to get used to that, because in real life, it's not that way, which is good. You have a little more freedom. It's also bad in that you might be on the wrong track and not know it, because there's no overlord giving you a red underline or something. So what I want to do today is start messing around with this little guy. In the top left of pretty much any page on CodeHS, you'll see the Sandbox option. And if you click that, you can just open a blank document. It's similar to what we did with Replit, if you're using Replit last year in one of my classes, and I think we still will because I still like it a lot. But in here you can just go create program, and most of the time we'll be doing Python 3, which is just the most recent version of Python. Who knows, we may do something that involves HTML, sort of like wrapped around other stuff, or I do like Pygame quite a bit, so we'll use that in the future as well. But most of the time you'll click Python 3, or it'll automatically be defaulted for you. And then you can just type stuff and see what happens. This is nice because there's no grader, there's no like checklist of, oh, you actually needed to type it this specific way. So today I want you to pick something from our lessons so far, something involving input or print or a little bit of math or a little bit of string stuff, like taking two strings and putting them together, that classic word we all know and love, concatenate. Or maybe you're gonna convert something to a string and then an integer and then back to a string after you mess with it. Or maybe you're gonna try the same thing in two examples. You could try, I think I showed something like this last time, where you could go like int with a number, and then the same thing, string and a number, and you get a different result. And that's what the Sandbox is for. It's just for typing stuff and seeing what happens. You get to learn, oh, the plus here is doing a different job than the plus here, even though it's still a plus because it's surrounded by things of a different type. And that kind of tinkering can build your intuition. You want to be able to try stuff in the future and kind of have an idea of how it's going to work. So today you're not going to make anything fancy unless you want to. Your job is just to pick one concept from the stuff we've seen so far, what I've mentioned, or a little bit of the logic with true, false, and or kind of thing. A little bit of if, and then one thing happens, maybe an elif or else following it up, or maybe separate individual ifs. You guys are going to practice whatever your idea is. You might say, oh, I want to make a program where the computer says the computer is going to say, this is just an example that we're just making up, but it's going to say, what is your favorite food? And then the user is going to type something, and then it's going to say, you know what, that is my favorite too. So if I were to run this, it would say, what's your favorite food? And I could type potato, and it would say potato is my favorite too. Now that is not very complicated at all, but it gives some result, and it looks fine, and it works, and it doesn't give an error. So you could maybe start with that, and then maybe add 1 or 2 other lines to beef it up a tiny bit. For example, you could maybe add one that's like, if they put nothing, then ask them again, or something like that. Really, though, this is practice of the sandbox, and it's practicing how to get it turned in. How do we do that? You cannot just copy this line and send it to me. You want to go share and copy this, which, you know, sometimes, depending on like settings or whatever, sometimes copying this would work, but not always. You don't want to do it. Very similar to a Google Doc, you know, like if you copy the URL bar and send that to somebody, it might work, but it might not, and you don't want to rely on it. So you want to do the share thing and then turn it in on Google Classroom. You can do this little guy as a private comment, and that'll work just fine. Thanks.